glad that you're able to be here. And let me just kind of welcome to the front. First of all, let me invite forward Mayor Kim Leonard and Robert, but don't call him Robert, call him Bob Kernow. If you guys want to come and join us here at the table, first of all, as they come forward, you join me in just welcoming our guests. And they have a couple things to share, but one of the things when we started surveying the congregation, and again, we've said this a bit in recent weeks, a huge part of the work of St. Paul in the last 4 or 5 years has been catch up on some building things, kind of solidify and get some stability to finances, and then that becomes the springboard that says, what do we do in the next 25 years? And what that stability has done, we haven't had to be quite as, at times in the history of St. Paul, we've had to focus a lot of energy on plugging gaps, on doing some stuff internally. I've been around here for a while, you know some of those stories. The stability and the catching up on infrastructure and facilities now is enabling us to pivot forward. You noticed, so what, we built this sanctuary, and some of you are newer in that time. This sanctuary was built in 2020. That was connected with some other administrative building and cafeteria and music room. Then over that time, we said the next pivot will be catching up on some delayed outside infrastructure, which you and I get to see now this morning. It's parking lot, it's grounds, it's some elements of accessibility, it's sidewalks that make the lower level lot parking seem a little bit closer, and it's also fixing uneven things. With all that said then, one of our questions that came is, okay, now how do we continue to be a part of service to the Peachtree City area like has been a part of the birth story of St. Paul? So some of you know this, and we've said this. St. Paul's School is the first school year. Well, let's just try the trivia. Who knows what the first school year of St. Paul was? It was 97, 98 was the first school year. And we say this, St. Paul, there's a model for launching a Lutheran school that says add a classroom at a time and kind of to measure and pace yourself. Did St. Paul choose to go that route? No. What did St. Paul do? Went from zero to school in a year. And now, some of you had touched that early history. You went like, that was ambitious. That was a step. In that now about 26, 27 years of the school, we've had about 2,000 students that have gone through these halls. This year, I think the number we had, being highly transient, there's a lot of turnover that happens in our school. Parents that get jobs and, briefly touch Atlanta and then get transferred out of state. This year, we had just about 90 new students, and that ends up being part of our hallmark. How do we serve people? How do we call it home in that time? Now, part of the reason I say all of that context here now is, on one hand, we get to serve people by operating an excellent Christian day school. That's great. Now we want to continue to ask questions. How do we connect and serve beyond our walls? What partnerships make sense in our community? A couple weeks ago, we had the executive director of the Real Life Center, and we said, what a great arm for meeting needs in our community, 1.5 miles that way. And our school and our youth do servant events. Our congregation, we have gatherings and funds and offerings for that. Now, today we say there are other organizations we can connect us. We had, Mrs. Wallace and I had the opportunity of having an extended coffee break with Mayor Leonard. Mayor Kim, Mayor Leonard, what do you go by? What can I call you?
Kids call me Mayor Kim.
All right, we were able to sit down with her about half a year ago and just said, okay, we're looking to build these partnerships. We think we're of the group of people that says, how can we strengthen households and build families in Peachtree City? And she's like, I love building coalitions. Here's other people you might connect with and do that, and we started that way. So those will be some specific questions we have here. But I thought, since they both expressed a willingness to hang out and be with us here today, Peachtree City is an interesting creature, am I right? Some of you have moved here and you went, there's something. So you might just have some general questions. How does this community work? Is the mayor in charge? Is the city and council in charge? What does the city manager do? And so some broad strokes on our way into some specific questions we get to hear here today. Will you join with me then as we open in a word of prayer? Even as we already prayed for our city leaders here today, we get to do that in ongoing fashion and specifically here and now. Let's pray. Lord Jesus Christ, you have already provided for us this morning. You have fed us with your word. You have fed us with these gifts of your body and blood here today. We are a people who are well equipped to be those who express your grace in tangible ways in our households, in our workplaces, and in our community. Lord, we ask that you would continue to grant that to all of us in increasing fashion. And now we, as you have encouraged us to do, as you've commanded us to do, we continue to pray for those who serve the public good, for our leaders in our nation, in our state, and in our county, in our community. We thank you for the services and the ways that Mayor Kim and our city manager Bob have served in the past. We ask that you can continue to grant them wisdom, stamina, good results for their labor in a way that they are blessed and are a blessing to our community. Lord, we thank you for this time together, and we ask that we might be all enriched through it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, and Mayor Kim, that mic is hot. This one will be ready for you when you're ready for it as well. If you want to begin, would you join me in welcoming to the podium Mayor Kim?
Good morning, and thank you. Can you hear me in the back? Thank you so much. My name is Kim Leonard. I am in my second year of a 4-year term as mayor of Peachtree City. However, I'm in my 10th year serving on city council. I served 2 consecutive 4-year terms as a city council member, starting in 2010 and ending in 2017. I loved serving, but at that time, my husband and I were thinking about retiring. I took a little break. My retirement, as it turns out, lasted 3 weeks. I'm very bad at retiring. I got a phone call from Noonan, and they asked me in 2018 if I would come in and spend 3 years supporting their new multi-use path system they call the Link. So they were looking for someone with some municipal government experience, some path system experience, some engineering and contract experience. Imagine that. So I spent 3 years working part-time in the city of Noonan, and I learned a lot. They gave me a nice little office in City Hall. They love their mayor, Keith Brady. They elect him term after term, and they love their leadership, nice downtown square. So I learned a lot that I felt I could bring back to Peachtree City. So in 2021, I decided to run for mayor. I'm glad to be here. I'm thrilled to be doing this job. I'm retired here. That was a conscious decision that my husband and I made, and with that comes my commitment that I want to make this community everything that it can possibly be. I think what most people don't realize about being an elected official at the municipal level is there are 5 of us, myself as mayor and 4 city council members. The 5 of us are elected. We have an election this year for 2 of those 5 city council seats. We have what's called a weak mayor form of government, which is sometimes called a council city manager form of government. That means that the elected officials are tasked with making the decisions, setting a vision, setting priority, and then we give those directives to a city manager who is tasked with carrying that out. No small task. So the majority of cities in the state of Georgia are in a council city manager form of government. It works well because it keeps the politics of the elected body separate from the necessary tasks of running the city and all of the day-to-day operations. So what that means is that the city manager's job is monumental. All of the staff, more than 300 people in Peachtree City, all of our operations, all of our departments, everything you see and everything we do is under the purview of our city manager. It's just an amazingly enormous job. I had no idea until I got elected 13 years ago. I thought, wait, what? Nobody reports to me. No, nobody reports to the elected officials. We make sure everybody reports to a city manager, and that separation is very healthy. Peachtree City City Council just passed our budget, $51.46 million for the coming year. Our budget year starts October 1st. We passed a millage rate in our city council meeting on Thursday night, 6.043. That millage is holding now for the third year in a row. We did not raise your millage, we kept it the same. So that means Bob has to work with what he has, and all those are the knowns now. What he chooses to do next will be up to him. I want to tell you that elections in municipalities in Georgia are nonpartisan. When you go to vote November 7th for the 2 city council seats, there will be no R's or D's. It's all nonpartisan, which is wonderful. It means that locally we have the luxury of just supporting and campaigning on and doing what we know is best for our community without the partisanship. Another thing I want to tell you about elections in Peachtree City is there are no districts. So when you go to vote November 7th, you get to vote for both seats. So pay attention to those candidates. The Rotary Club of Peachtree City always does a great job of hosting Meet the Candidate forums, and no doubt you'll be hearing online and throughout the community from the many candidates who are about to come out of the woodwork. This coming week, August 21st through 25th, is what's called qualifying week. That means if you or someone you know wants to be on the ballot for one of those 2 city council seats, November 7th, you have to stop in at City Hall, simply fill out a form, write a small check, and that's what makes it official. Then you too can be on the ballot and run for city council in Peachtree City. What else can I tell you? Communications. One of my priorities when I came in as a new mayor last year was improved city communications. When I had been campaigning, I can't tell you how many times I heard from people who said, we just don't know what's going on in Peachtree City. And that really, I felt, needed to be addressed. I'm happy to tell you that even though our city manager last year in 2022 retired and moved away in April, Peachtree City's leadership spent the better part of last year doing a national search for our next city manager. We had dozens upon dozens of qualified applicants. We went through a very rigorous vetting process, and I'm just so delighted to tell you that it was Bob whose resume stood out, whose interview and experience and ideas are just incredible, and he is already contributing very, very well to Peachtree City. I'll let him tell you more about that here in a minute. But one of his priorities has been communications. So he's been hosting coffee and conversations. He's been meeting with different cross-sections of our community and letting them know the nuts and bolts of how our city runs. And the reason that's such a positive for Peachtree City is twofold. First of all, it disarms the naysayers. We know who they are. They're prolific online, and they're grumpy, and they're mad, and they want you to know about it. But hard data, factual information, logic and rationale behind our decisions is very disarming to the naysayers. And the second advantage of Bob's community outreach is that he's been able to reach more and more groups of people whose voices were never heard before. For example, PTO moms. I don't mean to be sexist with the moms, but the vast majority in that audience were women who have young children in the school system, and they can't always make it to a city council meeting in the evenings. They've got baseball or cheerleading or whatever. So he's made a tremendous effort to reach out to a cross-section, all the groups in Peachtree City, and from that standpoint, it's going extremely well. I'm proud of our operations. I'm proud of this city. I'm proud of all that Bob has been able to accomplish in just this short 8 months here. So with that, I'm going to introduce to you our city manager, Bob Curnow.
Thank you. Can I get an applause for Mayor Kim, please? That was great. It's always tough to follow somebody who's such an eloquent speaker. It really is. It's me in a very interesting predicament. But welcome. Thank you for having us here. I do appreciate the opportunity to stand in front of as many groups as I possibly can to talk about some of the great things that the city is doing. It's a passion of mine. I've been in government for over 35 years. I started when I was 7 years old. I'm not sure how I was able to get that position so young, but I was able to make that happen. I do bring some unique experiences getting into the city manager's office from the perspective of when I first started working in government. I had a blue-collar job. I was working down in the ranks at the very lowest level of government, working through the processes. Those experiences have paid dividends to me throughout my career. It's made me relatable, made me understand how government works. But that operational aspect that the mayor was talking about, that fundamental learning, I think you only get if you spend those many years and those opportunities at those levels working through the ranks. I spent a good part of my career in IT, cybersecurity. I have a great background in project management, so it's kind of also a unique situation to get into the city manager's office coming from an IT perspective or technical perspective. But I was able to leverage that project management experience that I've had because I look at everything from a project perspective. I look at it from a capacity or a cost perspective, and how is it going to get that project across the finish line. There's also a very key ingredient to project management, and as the mayor spoke earlier, it's about communications. Communications is paramount to anything that you want to do and explaining the why we're doing things, and actually being able to get out and speak to a litany of groups just to have that conversation. And it could be a good conversation, it could be a bad conversation. We can talk about traffic, we can talk about anything, but it's just being able to have a good conversation with everybody to understand how you're feeling or how you see things, because my job is not a singular job. I can't do what I do without a great staff or a great council. I need to hear feedback from everybody, and I need to be able to make decisions not in a vacuum, but with that capability of understanding that I've listened to more than 10 people to tell me that they're seeing things or they're hearing things. And that's really the aspect of getting in front of crowds and organizations, to hear how things are going. Good, bad, or otherwise, I need to hear all of those. So as the mayor mentioned, from a communications perspective, we really ramped up our capability, surveys, and different things that you'll see on our social media platforms from the city, because I need to find a way to communicate with as many people in the city as I possibly can. From the perspective of service, I have to service every single resident of this city. So I have to look at how am I making that happen? How am I hearing from everybody to make sure that service delivery is actually there? So again, I could sit here and talk about how local government works and how I've spent so many years in different positions in the city, but I'd like to talk a little bit about a few things that I usually have conversations with in my conversations with the city manager, and that's developing a vision. I firmly believe that when organizations of any size, you need to have a mission, you need to have a vision, you need to understand where everybody's going. And we met back in, is it March?
March.
We met back in March. We went to an offsite location. We brought all of our department directors and city council, and we had a 2-day retreat with a facilitator, and we worked through conversations, and we worked through understanding each other. And I'm brand new to Peachtree City. I've been here since January. So it was very important for me to hear from all of our elected officials and the directions and things that they were interested in doing. But more importantly, what I wanted to do is establish some core values and a vision for how the city needed to move forward. So in 2 days, very constructive 2 days, we came up with our vision, which is uncompromised excellence. And those are pretty heavy-duty words when you think about that, meaning that we don't compromise in anything we do, and that means I need to get out there and head on task a lot of those very negative or sometimes tough conversations with people, and I'll be the first one standing in front of you to have that tough conversation, because I feel, though, again, through that communication process, whether we agree to disagree at the end, we've at least had an opportunity to talk and be civil about that. So when we created the vision, and my vision, when I start looking at governance, I look at governance in 3 different ways from a sustainability perspective. I look at governance from an organizational sustainability, and that's the ability of staff to continue to do what they do. Do I have enough folks on road patrol, the police officers? Do I have enough firefighter, paramedics in those positions? Do I have enough people on public works? Do I have enough people in our recreation department? We have monumental tasks, and as the mayor mentioned earlier, we passed a substantial budget just recently, and with that SPLOST that just passed recently, and we have an inordinate amount of projects in front of us that we need to prioritize and get done. And that also boils down to that operational sustainability is, do I have enough people in the right positions in order to carry that out? Then you have financial sustainability. Again, I mentioned earlier being a project manager, so I look at everything and I boil it all the ways down to cost, because time and distance to get a project done, it equals money. So when I look at the prioritization of projects, or I look at the fiscal responsibility aspects of the city, I look at it from that financial eye, leveraging our professionals inside the organization. And then, of course, obviously, we need to make sure that we're protecting our green spaces and the trees in the city, and we're keeping up, with the conservative aspects of, the use of the lake and things along those lines. And those are also part of the environmental aspect in making sure that we're providing those amenities and continue to provide those amenities in a safe way for all the residents of the city. And this is where the engagement aspect comes. I'm a firm believer in having conversations. I'm always outside my office talking to as many people as I can. I'll stay after council meetings and get in front of groups, because you build those relationships and that confidence through that engagement component. And that means that, again, going out and having conversations, or thank you for having us here today, gives us an opportunity to at least say, hey, if you want to know what's going on in the city, I'm probably the best person to come to have that conversation, because, as the mayor mentioned earlier, the responsibility of the entire operation is my responsibility. So if you want to know something about what's going on in the city, there's no better person to come to. If I don't have that information, I will absolutely get it back to you. But I want to open that up as an opportunity for you all. If you read something or hear something, or there's a rumor going around, just pick up the phone or drop into City Hall and ask to speak to me, and we'll get to the bottom of it. There's another aspect of the city that I wanted to focus on when I got here, and I know back in the past we've had some groups and boards and committees of citizens that get together and kind of give us input on things that were going on, and I want to re-envision that and bring that back. It goes back to that conversation. If I can't make those decisions in a vacuum, I need to hear from as many people as I can to help me push those ideas forward. So looking at increasing our volunteerism or increasing that resident community-driven idea is extremely important. So we're going to be here in the next couple of months putting out some lists of groups that I'm going to be creating that I want citizens to participate on. There'll be some application processes, some background process to go through as far as your experience. But it's so important that we have these committee engagement opportunities for our residents to give us feedback on the things that we're doing in the city. Again, I need to hear it, and I need to be able to make those decisions based on how I'm reaching everybody that's inside the city. And then again, I mentioned the surveys. How many people took the citizen survey that was put out by the city recently? A show of hands. So we're going to continue to do that. We had in our council meeting, thank you by the way for that, we had in our council meeting just last Thursday a conversation with the group that we've brought on, a consulting group to help us with that, to identify the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats of the city, where we can continue to do very well, or where some opportunities exist for us to continue or to focus on. And I think sometimes it reinforces, if you have a survey and tells you what you already know, which I think was part of the conversation, is some of the really positive things that came back of, this is a great place to live, this is a great school, it's very safe, there's just so many positive things, which is fantastic to hear our residents say. So then it's incumbent upon me to make sure that I continue to do those things well, right? So that's why it's very important to have surveys, or at least poll the community to find out what we're doing. Now, there's some things that were in the survey that we need to focus on, and I'm added to the repertoire of things that I'm working on for the rest of this year and then into next year, but we'll continue to move forward as long as we're reaching out and hearing from the people. And that's really a positive, so stay tuned for more surveys and things to be coming forward. We had some opportunities for federal grants. There was a couple years ago, the federal government had given some money to all cities, and basically to work on some different projects and put things together. But I'm looking at identifying other grant opportunities for resources to help us pay for some of the things that are going on. So there's some emergency operations grants, and there's some other things at the federal level where money is made available. And the key is to identify and tap into those resources when they become available. So having that capability, or at least working on some legislative, working with the county and the state and even the federal government to identify where Peachtree City can qualify for some of those grant opportunities, just helps us get some more projects done. More importantly, it helps us get projects done at a federal funding level or a state funding level as opposed to local level. And that's it for my presentation, and I will certainly like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, and I'm going to sit down at the table, and we're ready for all the questions and any questions that you all have. So thank you.
Cool, thank you for your time. Have a seat for a second. So, okay, here's your chance to do some stuff. Let me just reiterate some things I heard. Different than what I sometimes expect is, hey, something went really well or something was messed up. And stereotypically, I might go, oh, the mayor. And what I heard you guys saying was, we have an intentional system of governance that the mayor gets to be a figurehead, but I think you used the term, I am a weak mayor, right? And so with that, did I hear correctly that says the mayor is just, how many total are on the city council counting you?
5.
So you are one of 5 voices on the city council, and that's the empowered group of elected official, the city council as council. What's unique about so why have a mayor? Why not just have 5 city councils? What's unique about the mayor's position in the midst of that?
You know, the mayor should set the tone and share a positive energy and positive goals for the city. Fortunately, I have 4 more people on my team to help me advance those goals. But when it comes to voting, when it comes to the nitty-gritty, do we want to spend money on redoing Riley Field running track? At first, the body of 5 was not so keen on that. It was $450,000 to rebuild Riley Field's running track. I'm a runner. I think it's a great idea to rebuild Riley Field's running track. So it was my responsibility then to get out and do some lobbying among my fellow council members and bring my team around to remembering uncompromised excellence, to remember that we're here because we have something for everyone in Peachtree City. It's an important thing to have a body of 5. Sometimes it's a very difficult thing to have a body of 5. If I were king of Peachtree City, we'd be doing things very, very differently. We wouldn't have had an argument about redoing Riley Fields. But I'm happy to tell you that citizen input came in like crazy. We received dozens and dozens of emails. The Peachtree City Running Club got involved, and next thing you know, we were able to pass that expense, pass that allocation, and we rebuilt Riley Field's running track. We had a ribbon cutting involving about 300 children from PTC Flash and quite a few people from the community and the running club. It was a great event. It's a great facility. I'm proud of that work. And that's just one example of how my responsibility is to keep that vision in mind, always tap into what our citizens want to see, and then work with my own team to make that happen.
As I hadn't thought about that specific thing. For your guys' information, one of the things you might not know that when St. Paul hosts a home track meet, if you look out here, it's not like we have a track here at St. Paul. Our home track meets have been at Riley Field, just a little bit south of here. All right, thank you for that clarification. So the mayor kind of sets a tone or perhaps agenda or fosters conversation among the city council, and then you collectively give broad priority measures to the city manager. Is that a fair understanding?
We do. It's great to bring a city manager in who has 30 years of experience, and any council worth its weight is going to turn to the city manager and say, what do you think we need to do here?
All right, and you mentioned a survey, and I didn't turn around real fast, but I thought there was a handful of us that did a survey. Bob, how would people, if they didn't find the last round, how would they find the next round of surveys if they just want to go, hey, I'd like to be a part of that voice in conversation?
Yeah, that's a great question. We struggle with trying to reach everybody in the city because not everybody uses technology the same, not everybody is on the same social media platform, so on and so forth. So we're working to bridge that gap from a technology perspective to make them physical paper if we need to, or to offer every opportunity that we can for people to engage with the city. Most of the time, though, those electronic surveys will go out. They'll be on our city's website. They'll go out through any of the social media platforms. So if you subscribe, so I would recommend that you highly like or follow the city of Peachtree City or even the city manager's social media. And then once those surveys come out or any updates from the city come out, you're sure to get those. So then going back and looking at it from a survey perspective, the more information that we collect, obviously from a statistical significance perspective, the better we are armed at making decisions based on how we hear back from the citizens.
You mentioned some coming volunteer groups. My guess is there's some voices here that might be part, and I know those groups are coming. What's a for example? I can't quite picture what those volunteer groups are.
Sure.
What's a couple for example of places where people can plug in?
Yeah, so 3 of them that I'm working on right now would be a Paths Advisory Committee. Obviously, we have over 100 miles of paths in the city, and it's very important for us to understand that we're keeping up with the paths, but to also look at it from a safety perspective. We just had a very powerful message in the last council meeting of a very unfortunate accident that happened to a young man on a golf cart, not in our city, but in another city nonetheless. But it does bring to that light that we need to look at cart safety. It's a multi-use path system, so we have people on bicycles and walking dogs and walking and running and carts, and there's just a good mix of things there. And again, from that citizen's perspective, I need to make sure that I'm hearing all of the different capabilities and making sure that we're keeping that safe. In addition to that, I'm looking at bringing back a recreation advisory committee, and that's going to be that's going to help us. We're working on a recreation master plan right now that's going to look at the city across the board and give us a 10-year forecast of what we need to be doing from a recreation perspective. So pickleball may be in there for anybody who likes to play pickleball. But at the end of the day, this rec advisory committee will be responsible for giving us insight as to, are we doing the right sports? Are we aimed at the right crowds and demographics of the city, and just helping us move that through. And then the third one that I really find beneficial is engaging our youth, and I love to have that opportunity. We had the pleasure of having some interns working with us over the last couple of months through summer, and just the sheer amazement and effort that they were providing to us, a different view completely. We're going to be putting together what I call a teen political forum, and that's going to be engaging on a civic level at the high schools for anybody that's interested in how government works or civics works, and getting them to come in and put on pseudo council meetings or understand the council form of government, and just those types of things that I think really engages our youth and creates the next leaders. I can't be here forever. I sure would love to, but somebody's going to need to take my seat, and we need to start engaging our youth to move through those local government ranks.
All right. We'll shift. That was a couple of questions I had, just following up on your remarks. All right, so we're going to come to questions from you guys. Just, hey, I've always wondered this or that. I will prime the pump with this question while you guys think of questions you might have. And my prime the pump question would be, look, we know Peachtree City is just kind of unique. We literally call ourselves the bubble. When I moved here, I didn't know if that term was used positively or negatively, and then I'm like, oh no, we own that, and there's something cool, there's something very accessible about that. So my question from each of your standpoint, what is uniquely joyful and what is uniquely challenging about the type of community that Peachtree City is? We know that in various ways it's different than even nearby Fayetteville, and it's different than pick a town from the mayor and city manager standpoint. And again, I'm just priming the pump, so you guys get to kind of go, I've always wondered this. One of the things I want to know is, from where you sit, what is uniquely cool about Peachtree City, and what's uniquely challenging from your standpoints and your positions?
Okay. First of all, what's wonderful about the bubble is that I believe we have something for everyone. We have a strong Muslim community in Peachtree City. We really do. We have young families looking for amenities and entertainment venues. A few years ago, Peachtree City polled our citizens and learned that one of the things they wanted the most was more gathering and more family gathering opportunities. So Peachtree City got it in gear and started Night Market, and now we have Sunset Sounds, free concerts at Drake Field, and we have Back to School Bash, and we have our tree lighting at the holidays, and we've really beefed up those because of the feedback that we got from our citizens. So I take pride in the fact that we have something for everyone. 13 years ago, when Peachtree City turned 50 years old, the mayor at that time was Bob Lennox. He's been a friend and a mentor to me for many years, and he shared an article he wrote where he extolled the virtues of Peachtree City as a city of its own, a city with the word city in the name and a capital C, and a place where we would have everything that you need for shopping, for working. We have factories, we have parks, we have churches, quality schools, and amenities, something for everyone. So to me, the bubble means we have what was intended to be housing across the spectrum, alternative transportation, and amenities for all ages. That's maybe what I love the most about the bubble. Maybe the scariest part about the bubble right now is it was easier to be a bubble when we were in isolation, when there wasn't a doubling in the population size of Atlanta in the last 5 years, when regional growth was not pushing its way south. It was a lot easier to be a bubble. So what we're grappling with right now is traffic. Of course, ask us anything about traffic. We hear it every day. It's okay. But we see evidence of this regional growth finding its way to Peachtree City, and it's impacting our quality of life. So we are dealing with a affordable housing crisis, just like the rest of the nation is. We are dealing with increased traffic, and most of that traffic, remember, we're built out. Peachtree City's about built out. We probably won't top 40,000, and we're at 38,400 right now. But what we're grappling with is the growth around us and how that impacts traffic and other aspects of our daily life.
You said everything I was going to say. From an operational perspective, living inside the bubble means exactly what the mayor was saying, is we're a full-service city, and I think that's the key to understanding what separates Peachtree City from a lot of other cities in the county, is that we provide full public service or public safety. So we have our own police and our own fire and our own paramedics. So that level of service at Parks and Recreation and things along those lines, that level of service to me is what actually means and makes up the bubble. Keeping the city safe, keeping the schools operational, keeping our recreational activities and our amenities up to date, and that's been a big focus of mine since I got here, is making sure that we're living up to that expectation of uncompromised excellence. I've used the term, can we afford to own what we currently own, and going back and looking at that, meaning if you look at all of the city assets and you take that all into consideration, there is a wealth of opportunity and a wealth of things that our residents can take advantage of. The multi-use cart pass system is just one example of many things that we have, as we were talking about the Drake Field or even the Fred. I was just at a concert over the weekend, and it's just amazing to see that a city has the attraction of bringing in those class acts to the city, and everybody being extremely appreciative for that opportunity. Now, the challenging side of that is somebody has to be in the background pumping up that bubble to keep it inflated, right? So from an operational perspective, we are a built-out city, and there are some challenges that we're facing as we start increasing the amount of residents that are here. The traffic is a concern. The other side of it is we need to keep an eye on development or redevelopment in the city, because we're starting to see trends in the retail and shopping aspects that are different than before. Amazon has become incredibly popular. You can almost get everything you want the same day from a local Amazon warehouse. That means some of the big box stores like Kmart and Steinmart and things along those lines remain vacant, and they've been vacant for a couple of years. And to me, from a city manager perspective, that's very troublesome to see, as you start to see the decay of retail, especially in that shopping plaza where Kmart is that it has some unintended consequences where that store goes out of business, and then the decay slowly of all the stores next to it that were relying on that foot traffic or those opportunities of what that store meant when it was an anchor store in that shopping plaza, how that has some parallel side effects to going down that road. And to prevent that, we need to be amenable to certain things. We need to understand, are we okay with Kmart being vacant for 4 years? Are we okay with Steinmart being vacant for X amount of years? And what can we do to bring back that opportunity or give other opportunities in the city so we don't have that blight, or we don't have that what's called the broken window theory, where things start to slowly go down that road. So I think from a challenge perspective, there are a lot of things on the horizon that we need to look at, and we do look at, and the mayor agrees with. From an uncompromised excellence perspective, we need to look at those opportunities and those challenges and see where we can make some creative suggestions, or at least be amenable to certain opportunities, because at the end of the day, nobody wants a vacant Kmart building in a shopping center to just sit there and not bring any value to the city.
So you brought up the question, can we afford to own what we own? And so we're all kind of going, can we? Is that the right conversation? And what's part of your answer to that? There's a lot of assets. We're aware the city's 50 years old and we know things are shifting.
Yeah.
What's part of your internal conversation answer to that?
Yeah, so, being a young city, don't take me the wrong way. Being a young city is a fantastic thing, and there's other cities that are hundreds and hundreds of years old. But the key is that maintenance and upkeep of those facilities and making sure that you're looking to provide that same level of expectation for everybody that walks in the door. So if you go to a field, or if you go to a playground, or if you come into even one of our city facilities, are we doing everything we can to make sure that that building looks to serve up to uncompromised excellence? So what that requires is putting together a very rigorous maintenance plan that associates how often do I need to repaint the buildings, how often do I need to resurface our fields, and so on and so forth. And that's where that comes from. So when you see conversations of, and I hate to use this from a political perspective, but you will always see a political position of coming in and reducing taxes or making cuts and things along those lines. My focus for those conversations has always been, let's go back and see what the residents are looking for. Let's go back and see what the city is actually capable of delivering from those perspectives. And that burden is upon me. I am not a political figure. I'm an operational person. So when I look at these things and I hear there's a potential for diminishing my capability of providing those levels of services to you, then I will raise the red flag and say we really need to kind of shift our priorities away from the new shiny things to making sure that we're keeping what we currently own up to the level of standard.
All right, I'm going to ask one more thing before we kind of throw it out here. So you both had said, hey, the growth in surrounding communities and Atlanta and development of Tyrone and Fairburn is driving through us. We wouldn't be having a conversation here about Peachtree City if we didn't go, hey, since you brought up traffic, so when I'm hanging out and I'm either 2 or 10 lights to get through the intersection, so I'm going, oh, it seems to me it's not fair to go, thanks, Mayor Kim, or thanks, Bob, or something like that. Where does that conversation lie for any effective difference, or is there any effective difference that's possible or on the horizon?
So 20 years ago, there was a lot of conversation about connecting to Coweta County on the south end of our city on TDK Boulevard. There was a lot of conversation about that. Former Mayor Bob Lennox had it in hand. Well, then there was a new set of leaders elected who decided that wasn't a good idea. They stopped that project, and that's fine. I'm not even disagreeing with that decision, perhaps. But in the last 20 years, we have not seen political leadership in Peachtree City come up with any alternatives. If that wasn't the answer, then what is? And I'm sorry to tell you that for 20 years, we've been sitting here kind of fat, dumb, and happy, thinking everything's okay because, whew, those Coweta County drivers aren't gonna come into our city now. Well, guess what? They're in our city, and now they're in the heart of our city on highways 54 and 74. So we're late to the game, but we are here now. The Georgia Department of Transportation owns highways 54 and 74. They're state roads. We take care of lots of roads in Peachtree City, but 54 and 74 are not on that list. The Georgia Department of Transportation has decided to spend their money to revamp the intersection of 54-74. They will install what's called a displaced left turn configuration for the intersection. The contract is supposed to be let before the end of this year, and construction will start next year to rework the entire intersection. I can tell you that we all seem to agree that Peachtree City's too nice. If there are drivers coming southbound on 74 and they want to turn right and go west to Coweta, what do? We let them in, and then traffic backs up to City Hall. Well, the new configuration will include 2 dedicated right turn lanes for those southbound 74 to westbound 54 drivers and dedicated signals. So we'll have more capacity in all of the lanes, a safer, more upgraded intersection, dedicated right turn lanes from 74, and then a re-signalization of the entire corridor, all in conjunction with this project and all on GDOT's nickel.
Okay.
So stay tuned. It gets inconvenient before it gets better.
So I can speak to that as well, because when I was applying for the position and I started looking at all the social media and all the news about Peachtree City, I think the very first thing that came out was 5474, and I'm like trying to figure out, was that a math problem, or what did I need to do here? So I started digging into it a little bit, and the mayor was gracious enough to set up a meeting with the GDOT individuals, and we went down there probably within the first month of me being here, and I got to meet the engineers and have some conversations with them to understand what it was that they were doing. So to put it into perspective, I can talk a little bit about traffic, because where I came from, I spent 11 years also in a master plan community, about the same square mileage perimeter as Peachtree City is, but with 135,000 residents. So if you can imagine the density of the city and the same square mileage as what we're talking about here, I've experienced traffic and traffic issues. So when the engineers at GDOT were talking about that configuration, I was asking further questions about what they were going to do. This is just one point of solution. There are many other facets of this solution that will be coming. As the mayor mentioned, the resignalization of the corridor to make sure that the timing of the lights don't block people in the intersection. But in addition to that, looking at the entire corridor all the way down on both sides to make sure that there's not an inordinate amount of median cuts where people are cutting off that flow of traffic. And maybe we have to make some decisions down the road as to prevent some of that cross-cut traffic that backs people up into that intersection. The other side of it too is that we talked about on a larger scale, while this may pinpoint in Peachtree City and be our issue to deal with, really the issue is outside of us on the different jurisdictions that border us on either side. And you know, a lot of people will talk about not in my backyard, but the municipalities on either side of us are not necessarily feeling the same issue that we're feeling, so it's not on their radar to do something about. So having a larger conversation and engaging our local partners at the county level and even the county next to us level, of having a larger conversation about traffic and the increase of traffic. I'm sure they're experiencing traffic in Coweta County. I'm sure they're experiencing traffic in Fayetteville. I'm sure they're experiencing traffic in our border cities. The question is collectively, what are we going to do about that to make sure traffic is funneling through everybody the best that it possibly can, and not just us doing this displaced left turn lane now all of a sudden is going to put the problem in another city, so it's no longer in my backyard. But on a larger scale, we need to look at it and work with our regional partners to make sure that we're taking that into consideration. And that goes back to the growth, and that goes back to all of those things that, you know, everybody wants to move to Peachtree City as Atlanta starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So how do we make sure that we provide those traffic corridors safely in the best way possible?
Cool. Let's throw out here questions you have. I figure we have about 5 to 7 minutes where we can ask a couple things. They don't have microphones, so will you guys just repeat what they say as we're kind of recording and sharing? Ellen, what were you wondering?
Just wondering what kind of business or corporations do you have in the background that are exploring the possibility of coming into the Peachtree City area?
What kind of businesses or corporations are you aware of, or conversations that might be coming into the area for some of the storefront things that you were talking about? Is that a fair restatement, Ellen?
First of all, we have a robust industrial park in the southwest portion of Peachtree City. We are proud to have industries, manufacturers, and corporate headquarters from a multitude of companies from, I think, 9 countries. Everything from Sany Corporation, which makes large construction equipment, to Schola IPN, which is a Swiss company that makes those plastic parts that you see on pouch food. Okay, pouch food's a big deal, baby food and what have you. They are operating a 3-shift operation and can't keep up with demand. We have a number of quality industries. What we don't have is land to spare. While we are certainly built out, what we're focusing on now by default is a lot of our industries want to expand. So we're working with them to help them find, if it's a few more acres or if it's expansion in their existing sites, we're working hand in hand with our corporations to get them what they need. Another thing they need is a trained and ready workforce. Any industry looking for a new community to call home needs workers. And as you know, there's a national crisis in hiring. I'm proud to say that now at the former Booth Middle School location on Peachtree Parkway, We have, the school system has brought in colleges. They have Clayton State University for the 4-year, and they have Southern Crescent Technical College located there too, and they are partnering with our industries to help them get the programs implemented and the graduates that they need.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, industry is looking to expand, but in terms of storefront, that's a tougher question at Kmart and Bed Bath & Beyond and Steinmart, right?
Yeah, so those are always challenging, right? Because the face of retail has changed, as I mentioned earlier. So, you know, we need to look at a couple of different things from a development perspective, and that means that you have land available to do development. But from a redevelopment perspective, that means you're taking one of those stores and you're turning it into something that it wasn't originally intended to do. So those opportunities, we've had a few ideas that have come in and they just didn't meet the requirements or the aspect of what it was that the city meant for that village thought process. But at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves those hard questions, and I ask council all the time when we're faced with these things is, at some point we're going to need to be amenable to something, because at the end of the day, a vacant Kmart is not what I believe Peachtree City is all about, or its intent to Peachtree City. So what does that mean from that development? It could be a recreation development, it could be something else, but we need to kind of take a look at, you know, anybody that's interested in coming in and helping us develop that. I know everybody wants a Trader Joe's. How many people in here want a Trader Joe?
Every day.
Right, so I see the hands on Trader Joe's. So again, you know, those opportunities of making the city check that box of whatever it is that Trader Joe's needs to see a city need to have, you know, to make it meaningful to come in here. So again, hearing from you all and having you all come to council meetings and talking about those things are really important.
All right, maybe another question as we're kind of wrapping up. Michael?
How have the demographics in Peachtree City changed in the last 20 years?
The question was, how have the demographics of Peachtree City changed in recent years?
Peachtree City, Fayette County is one of the oldest counties in the state, and Peachtree City, I think 1/3 of our residents are 50 and older. We are up there. We are an older demographic, and we continue to get older. I think it's important to continue to partner with Fayette Senior Services. We have a location, of course, at the Gathering Place where Fayette Senior Service is offering a lot for our citizens, everything from tax prep. I come in and do talks, classes, exercise classes, bridge. We have a lot of amenities available for our seniors in Peachtree City through Fayette Senior Services. But also, I think it's imperative that we begin to focus more on the young families who want to come in so that we can reinvigorate our tax base and bolster our school system.
I saw a couple hands over here. Someone else? Doug, you had a question?
What kind of conversations are happening at City Hall on the issue of path safety? If we have a narrow miss every other day on the path, there must be hundreds of narrow misses every day.
Okay. The question was about path safety. I'm repeating it just for the recording here. Questions on path safety. I think almost anybody has some sort of conversation here.
Yeah.
What's happening in the
That's a great question. So in path safety, we're having conversations with our police and our fire in reference to, you know, one is maintaining that balance between what we can do on the path. So you see golf carts is one aspect, but the newer golf carts move faster, they're quieter. We have a lot more folks out on electronic bicycles or e-bicycles and things, and those things move very fast. So I think the conversation in large is to kind of understand what we can do. Do we need to implement some speed limits? Do we need to have some more checks out there and some more individuals out there on it from a monitoring perspective? But it all goes back to that awareness and having these conversations with, you know, everybody that we can get in front of to talk about you know, the criticality of what an accident might look like on the cart path. So we've been pretty fortunate. I've actually gone on some ride-alongs with our fire department when we responded. But, you know, from the conversations that are happening at City Hall is trying to ramp up that awareness, and I'm hoping that one of those advisory groups that we're looking to start here really quick is going to help us do that and identify some really critical areas. I know along Battery Way and along the backside of the lake there is really very crowded, and there's a narrow bridge, and you know, I think there's some opportunities there to take a look at, but that advisory committee and that awareness is really kind of what we're going to do to ramp that up, and then obviously get some more folks out on those cart paths to monitor the speed and so on and so forth.
Cool. I think we might have time for one more question. If anybody else have a final question? Dana?
Do we have any plans to rezone schools? Oh, redistrict? Oh, first of all, it's not our call. We don't have city schools. It seems strange to say, but we don't have city schools, even though we have 6 elementary schools in Peachtree City. We don't have city schools. It's a county school system, and what the county decides to do with that will be theirs.
All right, let me finish with this. You guys chose to get into the stuff you chose to get into. You campaigned for mayor. You could have looked at other cities and maybe had other opportunities. I assume not everything is always balloons and roses, and yet you continue and intentionally sought this out. Tell me what you kind of hope, as you finish up with you personally, what things do I see that make me optimistic going forward, with a dose of what's good for a church and school to be a part of as part of that opportunity going forward? And if you would kind of wrap us up with that, we have about a couple minutes left.
That's a big question. I'll share something that I haven't shared yet before, and this comes from my wonderful meeting with Pastor Don and Sharon, and I think we did sit there for a couple of hours one day over coffee. And Pastor Don wanted to know how we can serve families in Peachtree City, and that only comes from connections. We talked together about the other, I'm amazed every day by the turnout of the faith-based community in Peachtree City. I've had so much outreach from pastors. The Methodists, I gave a presentation, they wanted to know how they can foster positive civil discourse in the community. The Baptists, they feed us. They bring treats to the police department or the fire department and a meal at City Hall catered at Christmas time. And it's just, everybody brings something different to the table. And the Presbyterians want to know what they can do to contribute to the community. And I can't help but think that we should be masterminding a way to bring us all together, whether it's a walk for civility and then a community event that involves all of our churches. We have specific needs that maybe are not municipal. For example, crisis in after-school care. There aren't enough slots at Kedron Elementary School and Crabapple Elementary School. There just aren't enough slots because they don't have enough teachers for after-school. Kids and the parents, who are 2 working parents in a family, are strapped. So I think those are examples of where we have opportunity together going forward to connect this community in some capacity. I don't know what it is yet, but I think we'll find it with your help.
Yeah, and I can come. Yeah, I'll take the last word. Thank you. Far be it from me to love how I sound over a microphone. But I think that the key for me is I've always been in a position where I enjoy the challenges, the day-to-day challenges, and being a city manager has afforded me those opportunities to look at things across the board. I can look at things from a public safety perspective, down to a financial perspective, to an IT perspective. When I look at Peachtree City, I see nothing but opportunity here. This is a fantastic city. The citizens care about what happens here. When I was looking for this position and I saw this became available, all the stars aligned for me because it seemed to offer everything that I was looking for in an opportunity to be a city manager, because the individuals at the council level and the residents of the city really want something meaningful to happen in the city. And I believe that in my heart that I can offer that to the city from the position that I have. So I've always had a want and a willingness to serve, and to come here and serve in a community that is interested in the development or interested in things that are going on or want to participate or have conversations or welcome us into their churches to have conversations. I'm absolutely all in favor of that. So thank you very much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Well, you guys have been, let's just do this. Did you learn a thing or two? Something you knew or wondered about or got a chance to ask a question or learned where else you could ask a question? Some of this is, St. Paul, we want to continue to serve and integrate where God has placed us, where we can make a difference. You guys have been generous with your time, both just taking the time to be here. Your open and honest sharing was encouraging to me. Would you join me just in showing our appreciation? With that then, let me close in a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this congregation, this community, our leaders who serve the public good. the leaders who serve on any number of layers in our community, in our county, throughout our land. And we ask that you would continue to grant them wisdom, grant us safety, grant us peace, that ultimately, Lord, the way that we work together, live together, and serve one another might honor you, be for our good and for your great glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you again. We appreciate your time today. St. Paul, thanks. God's peace. Voters meeting this time next week between service. Voters meeting.
Hello.